you know.
And we can be that imaginative too as adults.
Yeah.
It's just that, well, I think if we were that imaginative, culture wouldn't stand much of a chance of surviving. And therefore it sort of tends to sort of scrape that off us over time, bit by bit.
I'm a great believer in the fact that culture conditions us to expect certain things, to act certain ways. And if you really sit back and think about it, a lot of it just doesn't seem to make sense anymore. The more you think of it, the more you think, well, you know. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks this.
Yeah.
I think...
But on the initial stages, you were thinking, why are people so stupid?
Yeah, but now I don't. I just think that the system itself, you know, I don't know what to make of it anymore.
Everyone has this deep side of themselves, and I do it myself. I have this deep side of myself, yet here I am talking to my wife in a room to a machine. Yeah, and most of what I say now, I would probably never say in any other context. And why don't I say this in any other context? Because I think my perception is that if I say what I think all the time, people freak out. And this is true to a certain extent.
Well, yeah, but they don't freak out because they disagree with you. This is what I'm finding out now. They freak out because you're actually saying it. Something that they've probably thought themselves, it seems. But, you know, not everyone. Everyone's at different points along the path, I suppose.
Well, there are many paths.
Yeah, there are many different ways of looking at things. But I've been made to feel quite positive recently about... It's really quite strange, and I guess I could get a bit kind of, you know, spiritual about it and say, well, it's almost as if the universe is drawing that towards me, or I'm drawing it towards myself for whatever reason. But it's almost as if... And there's been quite a few occasions lately where people have just started talking about stuff that have made my ears prick up. And it's not necessarily me that's initiating the conversation. And I'm a bit I've been a bit stunned on occasion lately. So I know we're not the only people that think about this stuff.
I'm 100% convinced that everyone has this depth. And some people do go to their depths, but perhaps don't talk about it, like me. And other people have the depths, but maybe don't use them, like maybe I was when I was 18, or probably before I was 18, or how I imagined myself developing when I was 18. And this is a development. It's all there for me to explore. I can explore myself and what I think, and talk to people, and talk about what they think. I just don't know. To me, it seems like perhaps people think there's certain things which you can talk about easily, and then there's other things that we're not really supposed to talk about because, I don't know, maybe we were frightened of disagreeing, maybe we're frightened of, I just don't know, being judged or being judged weird. It's something in the culture, but I can't really put my finger on exactly what it is. I just think it's a group behaviour, that is conditioned somehow.
It's like an analogy was used by someone who I won't name quite recently, who I'm quite fond of listening to. And they said that, in effect, the human being is worse than a sheep, because a sheep would have a sheepdog to control them. What the humans do is sheepdog each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
They police each other. They don't need a sheepdog. They do it. So we feel that, it's definitely, in my opinion, such a lot of fear involved in why people don't express themselves. It takes a certain amount of strength to do that.
I think it's fear, but I can't understand why.
Well, I can. That's what I'm saying. Because you are being policed by people all over the place. Whatever you do, someone is going to have an opinion on that. And it might not always be a favourable opinion.
Oh, right.
So
that's made me realise something, yeah.
So you kind of withdraw from saying what you want to say.
Yes.
For fear of that kind of opinion being brought upon yourself.
You know what it is? It's exactly like the dynamic between us, actually. Sometimes we have a conversation and gets quite heated and we're basically just disagreeing with each other's opinion.
Yeah, which is fine. That's a fine thing to do. And I think it's only natural. But I don't... Yeah, you were going to... Anyway.
I was going to say, that I've come to a realisation recently in my development that as well as expressing oneself, we should listen to other people's opinions as well. And when I say listen, I just mean just listen. You don't need to respond to something if you disagree with it. You don't need to say, well, I disagree with you and you're wrong because A, B and C. I mean, how many times has that actually ever worked when you try to tell someone why they're wrong and that they should think something else? It just makes them dig their heels in even more. It's absolutely pointless exercise, yet people do it all the time. I just think if people are going to express an opinion, you should basically listen, and then once they've finished expressing it, then you don't need to listen anymore. You can stop and you can express your opinion. And so what this does is it allows space for people to be more open and expressive. But I think there's a tendency for... I remember I was talking about reality conflicts. I've often used this term, reality conflicts. I think as people debate what is real and what is not real, and it's a natural human thing, I think, to try and decide what is real and what is not real, because we have to survive. And knowing what's real and knowing
but there's always going
useful.
To be a conflict,
yes.
Because we all have a slightly different perception of things.
Yes, and this creates what I call a reality conflict.
Yeah.
And when people have deep conversations, they're much more likely to have reality conflicts.
Of course, yeah.
If they're not skillful enough to realise when they're having them and then to back off and give a space to the other person.
Mm.
And I think this is why people tend to choose topics where they're not going to have a reality conflict, i.e. ones that perhaps are by the culture well-established truths, so-called truths, not really truths, but so-called. So we can talk about football, or we can talk about
the weather,
or we can talk about, our children and what they're doing, and there's certain things we can talk about that don't tend to have reality conflict. I think, yes, there's definitely a skill to stop yourself from getting drawn into that, because sometimes people just say things and it just really gets your goat and you have to correct them, but that doesn't work, and then you're just into an argument. So yeah, I mean, if there's something I'd like to put out there is to people, just you've got to be more aware of yourself and stop yourself from doing it. I've actually got a few different techniques.
I think all the time we're battering someone else, that's time that we could have spent perfecting our own, perspectives, as it were. And I've started to think that it's a waste of time to do that, because it's just about accepting the fact that you're not always going to agree, and that's that. And that's fine. It really is fine. And we shouldn't
you know what, a lot
become
of the time,
unfriendly with people and just a bit more respect is needed, I think.
A lot of the time you're both right as well.
Yeah.
You're just maybe saying the same thing but in a different way, or if you're not...
we tend to do that, don't we, quite often?
We do.
We're just coming at it from a slightly different angle, and that's all it takes to set us off, and then you're wrong, I'm right. And then we come to the realisation that actually we're both talking about the same thing, ultimately.
Yeah, that doesn't always happen.
No, but very often it does.
Yeah, it does happen quite often like that. And sometimes we have a genuine disagreement, and no matter how much we try and think about the way we're expressing it, it is genuinely that we think different things. And that those things are harder to deal with. They keep coming back. But sometimes we're both right in those respects, where we genuinely have a disagreement. I think, actually, I'm going to just try and think about it from both points of view. What's the way we can resolve these 2 points of view? Because if you're going to have a disagreement and someone really believes what they're saying and the other person really believes what they're saying, the chances are there's an element of truth in both opinions.
Exactly.
And so how are you going to think about resolving this? And who's going to offer the olive branch of resolution? And, how are you going to come to a compromise and build together into something, perhaps even more astonishing than what you actually thought on your own?